Hello, everyone. I am Stephanie Lemick. I'm the founder and CEO of the Wounded Workforce. I am so grateful to have an amazing group here today to talk more about career resilience. We are in an interesting time. Uncertainty, I think, is maybe the unintentional word of the year here in 2025. So, for this month's panel conversation, we wanted to pull together and talk about resilience in the context of our careers. And we want to pay special attention today to talking about how leaders can better navigate it for their teams, and also folks who happen to be on the job market, how you can navigate this uncertainty as well. I am super excited to have an amazing group of panelists joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead and give them the opportunity to jump in and introduce themselves. I will kick it off with Amy. Amy, welcome back. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Good to be back. I'm Amy Looper, founder of Resilient Growth, based here in Arizona, and just love helping people really find themselves during those big transitions in life and come back to their strongest version.
Awesome. Great to have you, Amy. Perfect for this conversation. Awesome. Jen.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for having me back. I'm Jen Fox. I'm an executive coach. I'm a certified resilient coach. And really, I've spent most of my career working with leaders, teams, and organizations. We didn't use the word resilience for most of my career, but when I look back, it really is about helping people figure out what's in their way, what's going on, and then how they can not keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. So I'm very passionate about this work and excited for this conversation.
Awesome. So great to have you join us, Jen. Julie, welcome.
Hi, Stephanie. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Julie Turney. I am joining from the beautiful island of Barbados. I am the founder and CEO of HR at Heart Consulting, and I support HR professionals who are struggling with burnout, career frustration, and workplace trauma. And so for the last 8 years, I've dedicated my life to sharing my burnout journey, but just being that support for HR professionals specifically, because we do need that support as HR professionals. I think that we are the hidden first responders in our organizations, and we need that support. And so I've dedicated my life to now doing that work.
Amazing. I am such a huge fan of Julie. I'm a Julie fangirl. I have to say, Julie is living resilience for us right now. She is doing this panel while the power is out. So if we lose Julie, that's what happened. But also, I just have to say, like, a huge thank you for you joining us, and also, modeling resilience for us, live in action as well. Jennifer, it's so great to have you back as well.
Thanks, Stephanie, and hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Laurie. I use they, them, and she, her pronouns, and I am a fractional chief people officer. I'm also the founder of Equitable HR Guild, which really aims to support HR leaders in embedding DEI into their work. And I do a fair amount of executive coaching and coaching for HR professionals. So excited to kind of bring all of those lenses to this conversation today.
Awesome. Thank you. And Jessica is scheduled to join us. We know how things come up, so hopefully she is able to jump on at some point during the conversation. And if she does, we'll do a quick introduction then, but we'll go ahead and we will roll with it. This is fitting for our topic, and get started and dive into our topic today. So I want to just start by talking about uncertainty and cultivating career resilience. And I think it's important for us to just first start by being honest that these are not necessarily the easiest of times. Whether you're navigating layoffs, job searching in a competitive market, or leading a team through uncertainty, or maybe you're just trying to stay mentally afloat in this moment that is kind of collectively stretching us all, it can be really tricky. And in moments like these, resilience becomes more than a buzzword. It becomes a skill set, a mindset, sometimes even a lifeline. But resilience doesn't mean pretending everything is fine or pushing through to burnout. It means finding ways to stay grounded, connected, and mentally well. So today we want to bring that forward in this conversation and talk about what it really looks like to cultivate career resilience from both sides of the equation, those looking for work and those leading teams within organizations currently. We want to explore the emotional toll of the market, but also focus on practical strategies to support yourself and others, and the leadership practices that can help build not just stronger organizations, but more human ones. So I'd love to start with a question for each of our panelists. Why is this topic important to you? And if anyone who would like to jump in, feel free to jump in and let us know what you're thinking.
So I'm gonna jump in. I think that this topic is really important because not only have we've already shown resilience. I mean, everything that we go through in our life shows resilience, right? But we are going through a particularly difficult time. I think every season is different. And so, yes, we survived a pandemic. Yes, we are trying our best to survive whatever challenges may be happening in our life, whether that's an illness or a family situation. And the fact that we're still here is something that I think is important to remind ourselves about, because oftentimes what I'm hearing and seeing now is that people forget what they survived. People forget what they came through. And so I think this time is really wonderful to be able to remind people of that. And then I also think it's a good time to prepare for whatever is next, because resilience shifts the way that we survive through things now is going to be different to how we would have survived them in the past. And so I think it's important to have those lessons, those tips, those tricks on how to do that now. But I also think this is a great reminder for what you have survived and the fact that you're still here. That's huge. So I think it's a great reminder.
Julie, I often say to people, you have 100% track record of getting through so far. So that really resonates, what you're saying, and it is so easy to forget those things. I think why this work is important to me is because I think there's so many sort of myths or just not good information out there. Stephanie, you touched on one of them, which is that sort of resilience is like grind it out. And I think it's so often conflated with like grit, right? Like I love the grit book. I love the idea. And I don't believe that it's the same thing as resilience. And so there's that. I think there's a lot of myths. One of them that I think is really important is that I think a lot of people believe that resilience is a character trait. And I think it's a practice. And so if we believe it's a character trait, then it's like you have it or you don't. And we often look out at someone else like, oh, I wish I was that person. I wish I had that. I wish I was resilient like them. But there's like this distance that makes it sort of unattainable. When we can shift to saying resilience is a practice, then Julie, as you're saying, right, then it becomes about, okay, what are the things maybe I see in that person or that situation? And what are the things that I can do within my control to actually build that? So that's what I'm really passionate about. But I think if I had to sum up why I care at all about any of this, it's just like I'm on a myth busting mission to really redefine what resilience is.
I love that, Jen. Like, I so agree. Resilience is so much more than grit, right? And when we embody these things that we go through, we have to clear this stuff energetically. It's very much a body focused thing, I believe. When we're going through trauma and big life things, it's all interconnected. And so when we're able to really just clear those channels, whether it's through breathing or somatic work or whatever modality it is, we can then work on mindset. But we first have to get our bodies feeling regulated so that we can really live in this reality that life is coming from me, not at me. And when we can really embody and shift in that, we take our power back and we lead differently. And it's like we can get through absolutely anything. So it's this big shift that I think people have an opportunity to really learn.
I love what everyone's shared so far. And yeah, +1 to all of that. I think for me, it's really important because as Jen, you were talking about, like, it's not a characteristic or a trait. It's also, to me, not just an individual responsibility. I think a reason that I really care about this topic is understanding that, yes, we all have sort of an innate resilience and adaptability and an ability to live through hard things. And I think there's sort of this like community element that is really important, and supporting each other through times that are so like globally challenging right now. And also, I think it's something that we need to be thinking about, not just from, again, it's an individual's responsibility to fix an issue or to withstand it or to just like, yeah, bear through it. It's also on organizations and leaders to help take care of, their employees and make sure that, they're doing what they can to make it so that you don't need resilience just to get your job done, right? You should be able to like do more than just survive in your work. And so that's kind of another reason that it's really important to me as well.
I love that. Such great answers already. I'm not surprised though. So let's like dive in. Let's talk about some of the tough stuff going on right now. How would you describe the current emotional and mental toll the current job market has on both job seekers and those leading teams within organizations? I'll open up for anyone who wants to jump in.
I just held a workshop a couple of weeks ago with folks in my circle for career clarity. And what I noticed was that, yes, it's a competitive job market and all of that. But what I also noticed is that people have kind of slid into this pattern. And I think this pattern has been going on for a long time, but especially since the pandemic, we've all been in reaction, right? Pandemic hits the world. What do? We have to react. It's an emergency. And so what I've noticed though, and how that relates to people's careers, is that they have just been kind of going on autopilot, just kind of in survival mode, right? Instead of really knowing exactly what they want, their vision, who they need to connect to, and being really intentional about it. Sometimes when those big emotions can come in, like the fear and anxiety, we all get it. It's a human thing. And that can really sideline us. And so that's what I've been seeing from people, even senior leaders of companies, whether they be nonprofit or for-profit. Their worlds are just changing all the time. And so it's kind of putting them into that trauma response where they're just like, I'm uncertain and I'm feeling it. And so I can't make a decision.
Yeah, Amy, I totally agree. A couple months ago, I opened my calendar to former colleagues who had been impacted by a layoff. I just kind of said, hey, if I can offer anyone support, and it was interesting. I would say 80% of them were doing what I think most of us do, right? When we're in a high pressure situation, we default to what we know and to what's familiar, whether it's effective or not. And so like 80% of them were literally applying for jobs the day they were laid off, right? And then like 20% of them were taking that step back, taking that pause, reaching out for support, right? Reflecting, what do I want to do, and taking that time. And so it was such a gift, first of all, to be invited into these like transition sort of moments with people, right? And to be trusted with that. But even giving them the permission to like stop applying for a job right now. It was like they almost like had to take a deep breath, like, wait, I thought that's what I was supposed to do. So like you're saying, right, that reactive piece. And so I think that's one of the biggest things right now in these times of change and uncertainty is looking at it's so natural to be in our comfort zone and just and have those default behaviors go on override. But like what would happen if we just stop to try to take a breath? And then I love the energy, the vibe that you're bringing, Amy, to this conversation already. What could possibly be different? What new opportunities might open up? What new ways of thinking if we just stop and take a breath or a couple days or something? So I'm definitely seeing that as well, that need to just like get right into action.
Okay, so Because of the people that I work with, specifically being HR professionals, there are two things that I'm seeing. I'm still seeing a lot of HR professionals leaving without a plan B because they've been like, oh, this organization has just been so toxic and so icky for me. I don't like this feeling and I don't like who it's making me become. I got to get out of here. But then going through that and still being in a space of I've not done anything to process this trauma, but let me go into another organization because I've either got an offer or whatever. And then they go into that organization and 6 months in, that this is what I'm getting now, which is 6 months in, they go, oh, the power just came back on.
The light. You were so brilliant. The light just went off.
I know, right? I was like, why is it so bright now? Sorry, everyone. Everything is going to start buzzing. So I'm so sorry for all the noise you're about to hear. But that's just the power coming back on in my house. But the common thing then is they've gone into that organization, 6 months has passed, and they're like, oh my God, I'm feeling the same thing again. And then when I have the conversation with them and say, well, did you take the time to heal from what was happening before you went in that organization and carried all the trauma that you had from the past role? Because are you really seeing what you think you're seeing? And this is not me gaslighting you, but are you really seeing what you're seeing? Or are you creating that environment again because you haven't healed? That's one. The other thing that I'm seeing is a lot of frustration. There are lots of HR professionals out there who have been on the job market for almost a year now. And there's just this general angst because when they ask the questions that are the reason why they don't work where they work now, and they see that it's very familiar or very similar. So when they ask their questions and they feel like, oh, this organization really doesn't care about people, this organization really doesn't respect HR, then they step away. So there's that frustration. I need to work, but when I go for the interviews, it feels very much the same of this organization is the very reason why I left the last organization and maybe the one before that. So there's that. So then it makes them pause and think about what I don't want to go in that environment again. So then they're frustrated because they can't find that sweet spot. So there's that. And then the last thing that I see is the interview process of itself. A lot of HR professionals now are seeing where it is broken or where it needs fixing. So they go into an interview process. I had one client who interviewed for a job for Amazon. It was a L&D role, and it took 4 months for them to carry her through this entire process and then say, no, you're not the ideal candidate.
May have had a freeze.
That's my internet coming back. Okay.
Yeah.
So that clearly shows that the interview process is broken, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done from that perspective as well. And so those would be the three things that I would say I'm seeing with the frustration that HR professionals are facing in the work, trying to find work or seeking to move on from the recruitment process.
Yeah, I would say, and then I think about all of those things and just the toll that has on individuals. Like I think we'll be seeing and studying like the reverberations of this job market for years, just on people financially, on their career journeys. I mean, and just more on like an emotional level, again, sort of like the trauma related to being so desperate for a job and going through this job market. I mean, I know people who've been unemployed for 2 years and consistently applying, and just like having to withstand that amount of rejection. I don't think we are built for, and that's not something we typically go through for that amount of time. And just like, yeah, being ghosted and all the different things that we see happening that are so broken in the interview process. And I just think that will continue to impact, our workforce moving forward, just our society moving forward. I think like when you ask about the toll, I just see it going on for like years and years with sort of these ripple effects. So I think it's huge, and we can't sort of underestimate that when we think about how to navigate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All excellent points. And I mean, certainly, I mean, there's a heaviness to what we're kind of collectively seeing, collectively experiencing in, the job market and kind of the career world and kind of the world in general. And I think it's, well said, Jennifer, we'll be kind of looking at these impacts, I think, for a long time. I want to pivot a little bit and talk to, the leaders who are trying to find a way to navigate this for themselves and for their own teams. So as you all are thinking, for those folks in leadership roles, how can they support the mental health of their team during, hiring freezes, layoffs, or just this high uncertainty in general without over-promising and also without them, burning themselves out or them not prioritizing their own kind of mental health as well?
So this conversation is very fresh for me because I just had it today. But I would say, first of all, you have to embody before you embed. So I think it's important for leaders first to embody good mental health practices, taking care of themselves. So you got to lead yourself before you can lead others. And then as you reflect that and embody that, and people see it, and you make it safe for them to be able to do the same thing, is really important. So classic example for me, I would say, like me and my current team right now. I go to therapy once a month. It's necessary because the work that I do is so heavy, and I can't be taking the stresses and strains of people and not processing that for myself and then not giving my team permission to do that. So that's the first thing. What do I have control of as a leader? Myself, how I respond to things, how I behave, and how I treat others. I can control those things. So I have to regulate myself first. So for me, I think all leaders need to take a step back. And when you're dealing with things like layoffs and you're dealing with capacity of work and scope of works changing, being increased, you need to be able to take some time back for yourself to see how you would deal with that. Now, if money is the issue and you don't have in your control to add headcount and those kind of things, then I think you have to bring people on the journey. A lot of times leaders don't have those conversations with their team members and say, look, here's the situation. This is what we're dealing with. Here's where the extra workload is going to come from. Let's have a conversation about who can take on some of this workload. And then the other pieces, and if we can't take on that workload or we can't meet that need, then it needs to be communicated back to management through the leader. And then there needs to be a safety for the leader to be able to do that. So I think that's one. The other piece that I would add is then you need to make it safe for your team to be able to do things like go to therapy and get the support that they need. But then you also need to have a system in place for your team. So for me, again, coming back to my team, one of the things that we do is we talk in percentages. So like we would say, how are we showing up today? If I'm at 50%, who can I rely on to give me the other 50 to get us across the finishing line for the work that we need to do today? And I think it's important for people to be able to say that. At my best, this is what it looks like for myself and for the team. At my worst, this is what it would look like for myself and for the team. And then who's going to be able to fill in that space when I show up at 40% or when I show up at 75%? Who's going to give me that extra push to get me through the day? When we start to have that kind of language, I think it makes it a lot easier for leaders to be more vulnerable and to show more emotional intelligence. And so I think those things have to happen first. We got to start with ourselves as leaders, bring our employees along on the journey, our team members along on the journey, and make it safe for them to do the same. That would be what I would add.
I love the percentages, Julie. I learned that, I think it was Brene Brown, in the context of like a marriage, and especially in parenting, right? You come in the door, you're like, I got 10% right now. Like, you got to bring the other 90. So I love
that's
that.
where I got it from.
Oh, it is great. I hadn't put it into a team context before, so I'm gonna do that. I appreciate that. So I have two thoughts. One is probably a little bit more, practical and optimistic, and the other is super Debbie Downer. So I'll start with the practical. I think the first thing I would say to managers is to be aware that, like, burnout can look a lot of different ways. I think we have this sort of image of when people are at their limit. It's like they're tired, they're missing deadlines, they're not participating, they're checked out. I can tell you I'm the exact opposite. At my lowest burnout 2 years ago, like rock ass bottom, you said I could swear, I was the opposite. I was over functioning, over driving, over delivering, yes to all the things, working all the hours because I was like hell bent on making things work. So I think, practically speaking, managers need to understand, know their people enough to know kind of where their set point is, and then recognize when something's off for that person. It's such an individual thing. And that's where you have to lean in. So my more resigned Debbie Downer thing is this whole idea of managers modeling and leading the way. I think I shared it today. I don't know. I was reading an article that said that managers have become the emotional shock absorbers of our organizations. It's like, oh my God, if there was ever a perfect metaphor, like I'm picturing like, a mountain bike with like shock absorbers and there's like mud caked on it. And it's like perfect for that. And so I think this whole idea that managers should model the way when they themselves right now are literally in this sandwich part of the organization. They have taken the role of a manager, in the last 5 to 7 years, it's a 180-degree turn from what it was when I first started managing. I mean, we were signing literally manual timesheets. I'm dating myself. We were there to like make sure everybody kind of came in and out on time and kind of did the thing and checked the box. And now it's just this like morass of social and emotional and mental, let alone the productivity and delivering the results. So in theory, yes, I want to jump on that train and say, okay, managers, lead the way. But I know that most of them, they don't have the support, the training, the infrastructure, or the safe space, as you said, Julie, to actually speak up. Managers need to get to work on the systems that are causing the people to burn out in the first place. And I used to champion this. Speak up, use your voice, until that backfired on me. So I'm not naive enough to say anymore that speak up, because you know what? Sometimes that doesn't work. So I think this is a very complex, nuanced problem. I mean, if there was a one size fits all, we wouldn't be having these conversations all the time. But I think it's just like for managers, what I would say is like, if people keep telling you to lead the way and you're like, I can't lead the way right now, the very minimum you can do is figure out where you're at and make like one request or one step forward, one request for what you need, or one step forward in a direction that's going to have you find some footing, and then you'll be able to bring people along. But yeah, I'm not really optimistic right now on this whole thing. I just think managers are being crushed. No one wants to follow that. They're like, wah, wah, suck the air out of the room.
That was a mic drop. That was a mic drop moment, Jen. I agree. It's a lot. And when you're in the middle, right, then it's like, if you don't trust the top or your people, there's that dissonance that happens. And so it really has to, coming back to what Julie said, I mean, it comes down to congruency. You've got to lead at all levels, no matter if you're individual contributor, mid-level manager, or senior leader, or on the board. Like it's about leading in a different way that's not fueled by fear and anxiety and control. When we give those three things up, it's like, what is it going to get us? Nothing. It's about collaboration, compassion, connection, taking courageous action, right? And then all staying committed to the same vision, because as a collective, then you're in this place of creating impact. When we switch that heart posture into impact, I really think we can just really transform no matter what the world is doing around us, because we're always in transformation. The world's been in transformation since day one. Today is no different. It just seems heavy because we have media all the time. Everything is being reported and we see all the negativity reported, not the positive. So it trains your brain to look for it.
So I'll add, when we look at, some of the systemic issues that I think, Jen very astutely brought up about how organizations exist and how, we put stress on managers from a system or a culture standpoint. Any ideas on what we might be able to do to better, equip managers to be able to navigate uncertainty and model the right things and support their teams in this kind of new evolution of what it means to be a manager?
I always think like change management skills is really big. So, one of the things that came to mind in the last question even is like just helping people, equipping managers and leaders to communicate with their teams, to know like how to hold uncertainty and how to just navigate like, I don't know, question all of the things related to just change management and communication through that. I think those are very under-trained and sort of like undervalued skills for managers and just in general. And I think they can make a huge difference in helping people navigate, uncertainty and shifting and, whether that's a huge org-wide shift, like layoffs or something like that, or it's something more just, we're going through some minor transitions or some shifts or people are having a hard time. Like I think those skills are so invaluable for folks at all levels.
I love that. And I absolutely agree with you, Jennifer. And it took me that's the first thing I thought of, change management. But the other thing that I thought of is that a lot of managers are not prepared to lead. So people want to be in leadership roles because they want the money or whatever, but they don't really recognize the impact they have on leading a team. And so I'm going to take us like a couple steps back to what I always recommend for HR. And I say, you have to assess for leadership risk and leadership impact. Every leader that you bring into your organization, whether you hire or you go promote through succession planning, you need to assess the risk of having them in a leadership role in the organization, because managing change is a very big thing. And it is a very common thing because organizations have to adjust because the needs of the customers adjust, the environment adjusts. And so we live in constant change, right? We're getting older. That's constant change. So organizations will mature, things will change, but we need to make sure we prepare leaders properly for that. And I find a lot of organizations do not take psychometrics seriously in terms of assessing for leadership risk and leadership impact. We always say that, people don't leave organizations, they leave bad managers. Why does that happen? Because you've not assessed for the risk or the impact of putting that person in a leadership role. It's one thing for a person to do a good job, but you see leading others, that's not easy, right? It's like being a parent is not easy because you're leading small people who are trusting you with their lives. And leading in an organization is very similar. You're being trusted to carry a specific amount of work to help an organization achieve its overall strategy. That means people are looking to you for answers and guidance on how and the work that they do matters and how it fills that little gap, right? So if we don't assess for the impact and the risk of putting people in leadership roles, what happens is the organization is affected. There's reputational repercussions for the organization for having the wrong leader in place. And there's also motivational repercussions. A demotivated team is the worst thing you could ever have. And so we need to prepare leaders better. And I think that's the case for a lot of organizations. And I do believe in the science of it. I think psychometrics matters. It helps us to guide in how we put people in those positions. And then it also helps us so that when we make a decision to put a person in that role, being aware of how they will perform at their worst and how they will perform at their best tells us what training plans we need to put in place, as Jennifer said, and then also the coaching plans that are needed to put in place. People don't just become a great leader overnight. It's a process. And so we have to be embed a learning culture for that. I also think that it is imperative that every leader be trained on mental health first aid, because it helps them to be aware of when the burnout and other things, poor mental health features, are happening in ourselves first. But then we can also easily recognize them in our team once we are mental health first aid trained. The same way we think first aid training to save a life matters, poor mental health is worse, because over time that person is suffering, and the effects of that are going to be worse than if the person just had a heart attack on the job and died, right? And so I think mental health first aid training is essential. Psychometrics is essential. And then the training and the coaching is essential. That's how we create great leaders. And I think that really does matter. We could all be the Simon Sinek's and et al. Who seem to have it all figured out, the Adam Grants of the world who seem to have it all figured out. But I'm sure that there's people in the background that have helped them get to where they are today that they don't talk about. But we need that in order to be able to be realistic and move those things forward for our leaders. I think it starts there. That's my
I hope everybody has their notebook out for you, Julie. You're just dropping all the wisdom today, and I want to echo psychometrics, mental health first aid training. When I did mine, I mean, at the end of the day, I was just like, I mean, every person, human in my opinion, but managers, anybody in a leadership position, teachers, parents, I mean, it just feels like it's essential learning. I really wish that it was, embedded into, school curriculum and corporate onboarding, but maybe one day that will happen. I guess the one thing, I just echo everything that you just said. And also I would add another sort of maybe small thing that I think organizations can do, and yet significant, just like when uncertainty sort of causes, kind of chaos in the nervous system, predictability can calm the nervous system. So in these times of change, Amy, your point is so well taken. It's always been there, right? We all think it's different, and certainly media contributes to it right now. But I guess it's like, what can you do as either the leader of the team or the leader of the organization to build in some predictable touch points, right? What's the stone that people can touch to feel grounded? If it's not like the weekly check-in that keeps getting rescheduled because there's some other fire, what is it? Is it it can look so many different ways. It can be a piece of communication. It can be the meal in the office. I don't know. There's a million different things you could probably do, but find something that's predictable that people can rely on, so that they can go, okay, at least if everything else is crazy, this one thing I can still come back to. I think about that in parenting, right? And so, I mean, when I looked out at the beginning of this year, looking at our calendar, I realized we could have dinner together twice a week, maybe once some weeks. And it went on the calendar as guarded time. That's it. And what that allowed me to do was, first of all, let go of my expectations about all the other nights. Like, if you got food in you, you were winning at life right now, my friend. But it also brought a lot more intention around the times when we were coming together. It's 90% of the time we're still making it happen. But I do think that those things, when everything else feels like it's super, super busy, find something that's predictable and commit to it. I think it's a little thing that we can do.
I think that's so good, Jen. And to the point in the one-on-one, I used to manage a sales team, and I always made sure, no matter what, that one-on-one would stay consistent, because that's the best way you can create psychological safety and trust in your team, is being consistent with the things you've committed to, right? And it's like, why should they move? Nothing should be prioritized over your people. It's like when they feel like they have that time with you to just vent, feel seen, feel or heard, like all the things, right? When they feel like they have a voice and can participate on your team and all of that, it makes such a difference. Even if it's 15 minutes, like it doesn't have to take a long time. And I think in these times where it is uncertain and you might have a lot of extra things and it feels chaotic, it's like just show up in the way that you want to experience life. And so if that's consistency, then be that, right? And that's the best way you can do it. You don't need a software system. You don't need another investment into something. Like it's really just a shift in your way of being as a leader, and you'll get through these times.
Love that. So I want to go back to our job seekers a little bit. And I know we talked a little bit about, facing this sense of rejection, folks who have been on the job market kind of re-experiencing some things that were traumatic in their workplace, experiencing endless rejection that can be really challenging. I would love to hear from you and hear, how can someone protect their worth, protect their, mental health and well-being when it feels like, career success is out of reach, or just navigating a challenging job hunt in general. What are some tips you have or practical advice for folks navigating these moments right now?
I would say one is just let yourself and give yourself permission to feel in response to all of this. Like, I think it is a very normal, reasonable reaction to feel disappointed when you're rejected from a job, right? Like or when you're applying regularly and you're getting ghosted. So just allow yourself to feel something as a result of it. Like there's a lot of effort that you're putting in. There's a lot of yourself that you're putting into this process. And so I think just kind of honoring that work and that effort, and being okay that that sort of is a byproduct of it, I would say is one. And then I think also just kind of like working to redefine your relationship to work, and kind of, if you need to, like decoupling your value from your output, like really thinking about what is your relationship to work and maybe your particular job or particular company you've worked at, and figuring out how can you like build your own value and self-worth in other areas so that there's a little bit more balance, and just really figure out how to build a more balanced kind of view of your self-worth that isn't so tied to your output, your productivity, your company, your title, whatever it may be for you.
I would also say it is a great time to get honest with yourself. And here's what I mean by that. I get the chance to act as a mentor for 2 different organizations I'm involved in. And when I ask, I tend to speak to a lot of sort of, late 20, early 30 something career professionals. And whether they're in transition or not, I think everybody's mind is often in transition, even if they have, a stable role. And when I ask them, what they want or what's most important to them right now, it is shocking to me, and yet not, because I was that person. How many people can't even name it? Like if they say, well, I just want to make more money, how much? And they're like they can't even like say the number, right? Or I want a better job title. I want to rise. What job do you want? Well, because they have all this meaning. Like, what would it say about me if I said I want to be like a vice president? How arrogant of me. So um I like to think through the sort of construct of like making it a game, not to trivialize, but to bring some sort of distance to it and say, okay, like what's the game I'm playing right now? And I know for me in my 20s, it was first of all, it was all about money. Then it was all about title, right? And then I had a family. It was all about flexibility. And now it's very much about flexibility and impact, right? But if I can't name the sort of phase that I'm at in my life, I don't have a hope in hell of winning the game that I'm playing right now. So get honest with yourself. Do a values assessment. Julie, I'm looking at you as a fellow Brene Brown fan. Her values assessment, she forces you to get down to 2 values. There's like this list of like 100 values, and you really want to have like 12, and you get down to 2. For me, mine are freedom and growth. That means it's not family. I have 3 kids, but the reality is for me, those are my guardrails, that if I have freedom and growth intact, it helps me to make some decisions. And it also, in this sort of context, helps me to explore other possibilities. So if those are the 2 that I need to have, well, that can look a lot of different ways. And it certainly means it looks like not a lot of other things, right? Like I could not go into an office 5 days a week right now. That would not fit for my lifestyle. So I would say get honest with yourself. And then my second one's a little bit more practical. Just use AI. have AI find a good ChatGPT or just personalize it for yourself and say, study my LinkedIn profile, upload any psychometric evaluations you have, upload any performance reviews you have, just give it everything you have. And then say, based on what you know about me, give me 50 job titles I could be looking at right now. It is crazy town what that thing comes up with. You're like, I didn't even know that was like a thing. So I think if people right now, if you're like a data analyst and you get laid off and you're on LinkedIn and you're like searching data analyst jobs, you're going to get what you're looking for. Everybody knows, I think they say the stats are something like 75% of job titles right now won't even exist in 2 years from now. It's insane. So we have to shift and pivot. And in HR, we've always talked about transferable skills, but I think right now is the most amazing time to have tools like AI to help us get in touch with what those transferable skills are and expand our possibilities to what that could translate to out in the actual workforce.
Jen, can I just say how much I love you right now? Because you are so speaking my language, and I got so excited the minute you talked about putting stuff in Chat GPT. I was like, you're my girl. You are my girl. Officially, I love you. Because I think here's the crazy thing. This is such an exciting time to be unemployed. Now, that might sound a little weird to say, but it is, right? Because we live in an age where there's TikTok and you can create content around your own story and what's happening to you and share that. And people connect with that. Because what people want now more than anything else is authenticity and truth. And so if people are sitting there every single day sharing their story of watch me get laid off, watch me get fired, but then they're also sharing the other side of watch me, get this job, watch me reclaim my life. And I think, so that's one. The money you can make on TikTok right now, if you're based in the US, is crazy. So I would say go for it and share that story, because you have a story that's genuine and different to anybody else's. And I remember hearing a quote that someone said, which is, your authentic self, no one can compete with your authentic self. Who can compete with you being authentic? Nobody. So I think recognizing that you have that opportunity, take it. And as Jen said, the things you can put in Chat GPT and come up with are insane. But I want to share this story really quickly. So I was watching this guy on TikTok I want to say recently, maybe last year or so, who was trying to get a job as an artist, a graphic artist. And what he did was, the company that he wanted to work for, he knew he wanted to work for this company. He designed a whole campaign for this company, not knowing if they were ever going to hire him. But he actually got the job because he created this campaign on TikTok and shared the journey as he went along and ended up being hired by this company. The possibilities are endless. You don't know. Organizations don't know what they need now in this age where jobs are being automated and streamlined. People don't know what they need. And you have a set of skills. I sound very much like Liam Neeson right now, but you have a particular set of skills, right? That only you can bring to a table. No one can bring those skills to the table like you. And so I think you need to be able to just harness that and get out there and do something with that. I read an article by McKinsey last year that said these are the particular jobs that people or organizations are going to be looking for up to 2030 and beyond. And they had things on there like algorithm bias coach. They had second act coach on there. They had jobs around virtual reality and people who would train you and help you to adjust or climatize to being in a virtual environment. And so I thought, it made me think, my gosh, well, if these are the possibilities, then what is possible for HR? And I did exactly what Jen said and put this stuff in Chat GPT and said, Give me a couple HR roles that are going to be more forward thinking that organizations are going to need. And I got a vision forecaster for like visioning roles for the future and being able to recruit for those roles. It gave me a whole bunch of stuff. And then we have to get out of this mindset of, if I go on LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, wherever I go and look for these jobs, our mindset needs to shift. We have access to people we have never had before. And I think that if there's a job idea in you that you think you could bring to someone, pitch it. Pitch it. Find the organization you want to work for and pitch it. Stop applying for jobs. This is an exciting time to be unemployed, because if I had to do this all over again, I'd go to ChatGPT, find one of those roles that best suits me, and I would pitch it all day, all night to anyone who would hear. I'd do videos and put them on LinkedIn and say, this is the role I'm looking for. That open to work thing that sits on LinkedIn, yes, have it there, but it annoys me. But have it there, but do something with your life. Do something with it, right? Yes, you are open to work. Yes, you've created a resume, but do something different. What makes you stand out? My ADHD brain will take me on journeys to and hither that I have never been on before. And I'm telling you, the things that I have discovered about the work, even the work that I do and the way that I do it, is completely different to the average person. But no one brings the authenticity that you bring to the place more than anybody else. So just be different, explore, experiment. Stop applying for jobs on LinkedIn and Indeed alone. Start thinking about the roles that you are excited about that could be possible for you, and go pitch them. Pitch them and get those jobs.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. We could have like this conversation for, I think, a whole nother hour. This has been so incredible. I want to be cognizant of everyone's time though. So I want to leave with a final question for each of our panelists. If folks are interested in learning more about resilience, about, navigating this, different type of, an uncertain world, an uncertain job market, getting creative, what recommendations do you have for a book, podcast, anything? And Jennifer, I'll start with you.
So the book that comes to mind is something that I was talking about, is questioning, kind of redefining your relationship to work. It's a book called Work Won't Love You Back, and just sort of helps, I think, like redefine your own self-worth and do some questioning of what you want and how to build sort of a reciprocal relationship to your work, that I really love for anyone who's asking some of these questions right now.
Amazing. Great recommendation. Thank you. Julie, how about you?
So it would be remiss of me if I did not mention the Mel Robbins podcast, because Mel really makes you tap into your inner self. And if you ever wanted to reconnect with who you are as a human being, to rebuild your resilience, Mel definitely is someone that you need to be listening to. So I would say my resource would be the Mel Robbins podcast for sure.
Awesome. Thank you. Jen, how about you?
Julie, we are cut from the same cloth. Mel Robbins is my mentor from afar. She does not know this, of course, but she is. Stephanie gave me permission to do some shameless self-promotion, right? Okay, I have permission.
Yes, please.
So Stephanie and I have partnered on a course. It's based on a model for resilience that I created, the Bounce Back Blueprint. It is on the wounded workforce. So we have collaborated on this because the work she does builds resilience at the organizational level, and I come in to also help build it at the individual level. So shameless self-plug on that. And second, real quick, is the PR6 assessment. We talked a little bit about psychometrics. The PR6 measures resilience. Again, it's like nebulous thing. How do we measure it? And I'm finding a lot of value in that assessment. It measures it on 6 dimensions. So something to check out.
Amazing. Wrap us up, Amy.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, resilience is so multifaceted, right? And so I think some of these assessments and tools are amazing for the cognitive side of it. And then I'm going to do a shameless plug for my resilient growth method too, because mine's really through lived experience. I've been through multiple traumas in the last 10 years. And so I went out on this seeking mission as a founder, and And so it's really about stepping into the 5 cornerstones, which is, courageous action, committing to your vision, committing to something, right, greater than yourself, leading with compassion, connection, and all of that builds confidence. But bottom line is we got to take ourselves out of circumstance. We're not a victim of it. And we get to really get into this place where we start to see the gifts and start to build our tolerance levels and, change and capacity and all that kind of stuff is so, so good. So reach out anytime. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for joining us. This was such a fantastic conversation. We could have gone on so much longer. Please, if you're not, make sure you're following each of our panelists, connect with them, here on social media, but also their individual websites and resources. I'm a super fan of all of these people. So that should be a good sign. And until next time, take care of yourself, be well, and make sure and tune in next month because we're going to be tackling AI and trauma-informed practices as well. So thank you so much and have a good rest of your day.